let's just jump into it because we have quite a bit of hockey stuff because we have finally had on ice action for the Canucks in a real sort of game. It was a preseason game. The roster they brought was not great. However, it was still a 10-0 loss going up against the Flames in Calgary here last night.
It's a tough look. Obviously, going into that, you know that they're going to lose. Just looking at the rosters that were presented, I just looked at the Canucks rosters and I was like, yeah, they're going to lose. And then I looked at the Flames roster. Like I assume the Flames, they're home, but the guys got to go home at night. You know they're going to play some of their stars, and they played a lot of them. And Markstrom played almost the whole game.
I was going to say they played a majority of their top three lines. I'd say 8 of the top 9 players were in for forward. Yeah. And at least the top, if I'm thinking correctly, at least top 2 defensemen, if not the top 4 defensemen.
Yeah. Because they need to play a game, but 10-0 is still kind of embarrassing when you get a touchdown and a field goal put up on you. It doesn't matter who's playing. It's not a good look.
No, not a good look. I started watching, went into the second period, and I think we let in the 4-0 goal. And I decided, you know what, that's it. I'm going to call my mother, who is watching, hello, mother, and talk to her on the phone while watching the rest of that massacre. Because it was just, I wish there was something positive other than the game is now over and we can move on. And hopefully when we play in Edmonton on Wednesday, it's not that bad. But
yeah.
Did you watch the whole game? Did you catch most of it?
No. I actually fell asleep. I intended to watch it, and I ended up passing out in my bed. And I woke up and I was like, okay, what's going on? And I opened up Twitter and it was the end of the second. And it was 7-0. And I went, you know what? I'm just going to go get dinner. I don't need to watch the rest of this.
That was you made the right choice. Taking a nap would have been the right choice. In my watching, I mean, on the roster, we had Podkolzin, Pius Suter, Jack Studnicka, Nils Hoglander, Nils Amon, Carlson. I don't remember what his first name is off the top of my head. Linus Carlson, Dakota Joshua, Atu Ratu, Sheldon Dries, Aiden McDonough, Max Sasson, Danila Klimovich as your forwards. On that roster, you've got 2 guys who are almost guaranteed in the NHL. And the rest of your top 6 are fighting for an NHL position plus Dries.
Yeah.
On defense, you had Hiroshi, Juleson, Irwin, McWard, Rathbone, Wu, and then you had the new pronunciation of Shilovs.
That's right.
Benko.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say I'm glad we went out based off of this one preseason game. Glad that we went out and picked up what's his name from
DeSmith.
DeSmith, Casey DeSmith. But holy geez, am I happy that we have a competent backup in case the worst case scenario like last year happens with that.
Yeah.
Because Shilov's he doesn't look ready. And he's got a lot of time. He can still grow into it, but
no, he doesn't. And I think another year where he can go down to Abbotsford and be the guy is exactly what he needs. I know there's kind of a goalie like stockpile right there right now, but I think they're going to be trying to move on from Spencer Martin. There's been a few rumors I've heard in the Twitter sphere, I guess. But I think Shilovs is going to have to be the number 1 in the AHL, and he's going to have to prove that he can be if you want to be comfortable with him moving forward. Obviously, he had a great World Juniors or World Championships this offseason, but a good week and a half of hockey does not equal a good 82-game player.
No. And again, the nice thing with the organization finally moving the farm to Abbotsford is that you can get Ian Clark down to Abbotsford training with them every day or a couple times a week and get Shelov's that 40 to 50 games in a season where he is the man. He's the guy who needs to be there and has the pressure on him. The only other spotlight I saw on this game, and it was a small one, was Hoglander on the forecheck. Don't get me wrong. I think it's still a stretch for him to make the opening night roster, despite my desire and my want for him to be on that opening night roster, and my predictions, which we will get to later in the show, of our opening night roster. He needs this to me. Both Hoglander and Podkolzin, this is kind of their make or break year. Yeah. If they're back and forth between the AHL this year and not full time, or I would say majority of the time, over 50% in the NHL, you got to start looking at moving them to recoup draft picks.
Yeah,
if you can, or they're just career AHLers, which there's nothing wrong with. It just would be nice to get plus side out of guys we've seen positives out of. Because both Podkolzin and Hoglander were given premium positions in training camp this year, coming in.
Absolutely.
With Tocchet, with Hoglander playing alongside his friend Pettersson and some guy named Andrei Kuzmenko. And then Podkolzin being put under the tree of Timothy Miller to learn from. And I can't remember who asked the question, but someone had asked, one of the members of the Canucks media asked Miller, like, why do you think they put you two together? Like, was it a learning moment? And Miller was like, yeah, I see myself in this kid because I had all these pressures and all these expectations. We're built very similarly. Our game style is a little bit different, but very similar. If I can help him improve and help him be better, then maybe it works. So I'm hoping that Tocchet and Alvin and Rutherford give him a chance to grow. But this core also needs to win into the playoffs. Just get into the playoffs this year. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Something else that's very interesting that I think is going to take up a lot of Canuck media time is going to be who's going to play on the right side or just on the ice with Hughes. Because really with Hughes, he can play either side. And he's very all over the place, dynamic, moving the puck. Who do you want to see play with Hughes? Because he came into the training camp, and the first day they put him with Noah Juleson.
Yeah.
And Rick Tocchet mentioned that he likes having a lefty and a righty together on the defense.
Yeah.
Day 2 and 3, and during the scrimmage, Hughes was paired with Carson Soucy, who has never had first pairing minutes.
Yeah, I think in a way what you need is somebody like Luke Shen, who was just kind of a stay-at-home. He was steady. Hughes can kind of do his thing. That being said, I don't know if and to be honest, Hughes's defensive partner is not going to have to be the best defensive guy on the team because Hughes is intentionally going out there for offensive zone faceoffs. A lot of the time he's going up against the second line of the opposition or the check-in line because he's out there for offensive zone times. So it's not like you need Hughes and a shutdown guy. Like Hughes isn't starting against the McDavid line when they play the Oilers. Like not in the defensive zone, right? So I think Noah Juleson's going to get a really good look. I also think that I'm still expecting the Canucks to sign Ethan Bear. And when Ethan Bear comes back, I expect him to have an opportunity to play beside Hughes. But that's like, who knows? Like he still has the shoulder injury. He's not signed. I don't even know if he stayed in. Like, I don't know what's going on with him. So I think that's something to look for down the line. But I think Juleson, opening day, Juleson's going to be listed as the guy playing beside Quinn Hughes.
See, and that's something I didn't even think about. And because of his injury with his shoulder, he's not going to be ready to go until January. Mm-hmm. Which, at that point, you could open up you open up more cap space. So when you go to sign a player, it's a retroactive cap space. So he might get paid X, but it's a smaller amount on your cap hit, which would be very helpful because the Canucks are right up against it again. Yeah. That's an idea that I honestly haven't heard, and I clearly haven't even thought of, because as you said, it's like it makes sense. If Juleson isn't up to par, or whoever is playing with Hughes isn't up to par by December, do you go to Bears camp and say, "Hey, start skating, start getting in shape. Here's a contract with your name on it for this date because it works within our cap structure"?
Yeah, and they have to sign him by I didn't look this up before. It's kind of like the Willie Nylander situation from a few years ago, where like whether it was December 1st or December 15th, or I want to say it was like middle of December, you have to have an RFA signed by then, or they just can't play that year. So do they possibly have an idea with Bear where they're like, hey, we want to pay you 1.5 for this year or 2, and they're like, yeah, probably. Like, let's figure out how this goes. Maybe they trade his rights throughout the year. But I would be hard pressed to believe that they haven't already had not they haven't for sure been like 1.6 or 1.65, whatever, right? But like they're probably 1 year we're in the 1.5 to 1.75, like we're in there. Like, let's see how the year goes. And it depends on how Juleson or whoever is playing with Hughes plays, because if they're lighting it up, then Bear becomes not as likely, right?
But you could also structure it in a way for the cap hit's only 800,000, and there's 800,000 in bonuses, which then gets deferred to next year and puts us more in cap issues. But that's fine, because we need to make the playoffs this year. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen? Now, I don't have it on our rundown here, and I didn't even bring it up. Elias Pettersson. I want your take on his contract situation. Not that not that people in Vancouver or Vancouver fans should start to panic, but do you find it shocking he hasn't signed a contract extension to this date?
If you asked me this like 3 years ago, not just about EP40, but just about anybody who was this guy 3 years ago for the Canucks, I would say yes. I think with a lot of the contracts that have been going on, a lot of the RFAs have been kind of extending their going into their final year. They've been a lot of like, I mean, I don't want this to happen, but you just look at Calgary, you look at the Matthew Tkachuk situation literally a year ago. I don't think it's quite to that level. I don't think Pettersson's at the level where he says like, if the Canucks, and they're not going to, I'm a Canucks fan, they're not going to do this, but let's say the Canucks went out and won the President's Trophy this year and lost in the Stanley Cup final. Like, Pettersson's not going to be like, well, no, I still am not signing, right? Like, if the Canucks aren't showing that they're going to be putting their best foot forward, he's probably going to ask to leave. But I think the first 10 to 20 games will be very important for the Pettersson contract situation.
I think it's important, not just for Pettersson contract situation. I think it's important for everyone who we consider a core player, whether that's Demko, Miller, Petey, Brock, Hughes. If you have another like 1-5-7 record, because apparently we love to lose in overtime in October, in the early part of the season.
Absolutely.
If you have that sort of record, what do? You've shot yourself in the foot again, even before you hit American Thanksgiving, which, if you don't know, American Thanksgiving, if you're in the playoffs or you're out of the playoffs, it's very hard for you to get into the playoffs, even though it's that early in the season. Don't ask me science, math does the numbers. What do you do? Do you start trading people? Like, do you start looking for a trade partner for Miller, do you go to New Jersey and say, you're the only team we're making this deal with? You have to give us everything you own for the next 12 years?
I don't think the Canucks make a big trade, no matter how the season starts, until Christmas.
You think they hold out until Christmas?
Yeah. Like, now if they go 0-10, then
that's different.
That's different. But like 2-5-3, even, like, I still think that they I think they hold off and they're going to figure something out or pretend like they're trying to figure something out. But that's my thought.
Well, and it's not like we have an easy October to start either. We have the Oilers back to back, like a home and home with the Oilers. Then we go to Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, Florida, Nashville. Then we're finally back home to play the Blues and the Rangers back to back. And then we finish the month off at home against the Predators.
Yeah.
To me, there's one game in there that I look at and say that's a guaranteed win.
Philly.
Despite going into Philly, it's hey, you never know. Crazier things have happened going into Philly. Their fans are crazy insane. I know a couple Philly fans. They're nuts or bananas. But like the Oilers split, if you get 1 point out of that, you're happy.
Yep.
If you get 1 point out of the Florida trip, you're happy.
Yep.
You need to be able to beat the Rangers, who knows what they're gonna what they're actually gonna be like.
Yeah.
And same with the Predators. You need to beat those 3 teams and the Flyers, and hopefully steal a win from one of the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Oilers.
Yeah.
To be in a good position.
If you come out of those first 5 games, you want to have 4 to 5 points, and you probably consider that a fairly successful.
And you know what? If out of those first 5 games, I would consider that a huge success based off of our most recent
starts.
Few years. Ugh.
Yeah.
But speaking of the first game with the Oilers, October 11th, we discussed this off screen a little bit, so I'm going to actually pull up my list because I have the memory of a bloody goldfish.
Yeah.
Opening night depth chart. This is something I always like to do because you never know what's going to happen. And I think it's always fun to see what other fans think.
Yeah.
I'm going to start in net.
Okay.
Because I don't think either one of us is going to change here.
No.
Thatcher Demko's your starter.
He is.
Unless there is an injury in preseason.
Yeah.
Canucks luck, it's bound to happen eventually that we get the injury bug through our goalies again. Knocking on everything I think is made of fake wood.
Yeah.
But do you want to go through your defensive pairings first?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to say Hughes, Juleson, which we've already discussed. Hronek with Cole. Cole's kind of shown himself as a fairly good puck mover so far. Not the big stretch passes, but he's very calm and confident just from camp and what I've seen, what I've heard.
And he's played he's played important minutes with some very big teams, like winning teams.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense.
And then the only thing that scares me is if that's the case, that Hronek Cole line is, and Cole was to what I want him to be to Hughes, to Hedman. Hedman's also not the guy that's getting the defensive zone starts against the McDavid line. Hedman's the guy that's getting the offensive zone starts. Cole's defensive pairing came out for those. And Hronek, his biggest thing in Detroit, just from the little bit of research I've done, was when he first started and he was getting those time against the big boys, that's when he struggled the most. Now he was younger. He's grown. Moritz Seider came in and kind of was taking over a lot of that responsibility, and Hronek has looked better since then. So if you put him on a pairing with Cole, could be a little sketchy, but I think that's how they start.
But if you're also looking at it like your second, to me, that is a second pairing that's not a shutdown pairing.
No.
But it's not you need to put them in the offensive zone every time. You could put them any zone and I'm comfortable with them.
Yeah.
But to me, you have Hughes, Juleson, who you can put up against the McDavid line, but why would you want to waste Hughes' ability on that? And Juleson, I think, would be exposed.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
Hronek Cole, I don't know if you trust them defensively enough to be both of them like as a pairing, because we haven't seen them as a pairing defensively enough against that. And who do you have as your third pairing?
Susie Myers.
So that would basically mean that you're the way we're talking is Susie Myers is our shutdown pair.
Yeah, that's what I said. Those are the words that came out of my mouth.
Well, it's funny because we have the exact same pairings on defense.
Fair. Who do you have as your seventh defenseman who's probably sitting in the press box to start the year?
Before this preseason game, I would have said Matt Irwin because he's a physical defenseman. He can get in there in games where you know it's going to get chippy and ugly, and is willing to defend players. Now, after watching him, don't get me wrong, he did do that in the game. He stood in and took a fight. But after watching the game defensively, I think I'm leaning more towards Wolanin than I am Irwin.
Fair. I have Rathbone there. But
I want that to be true.
Yeah, that might just be a want, but that's who I have, and I just hope he starts up and can do something. But
again, none of the players look good last night. I don't I know Rathbone was on the ice at points. I don't remember him. He didn't make an impression on me. So, and I don't know if that's good or bad in a 10-0 blowout because it's not like Jet Wu where I was really hoping for good things from him, and literally the first goal of the game, it goes off of his skate, redirects right in front of She Loves, and it goes through She Loves' 5-0. And it's like, that's just Wu's luck. Like, he's been cursed from the moment he was selected.
Yeah.
Because it was Benning's pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have the exact same pairing of Hughes Juleson, Aronic Cole, Susie Myers. I could also see a situation where you get Hughes and Cole, Hronek and Susie, and then Juleson Myers as your third pairing.
Yeah. So I went back and forth on something very similar to that, to be honest with you. And I was just like, and then, I don't know, I was like, do Hughes and Hronek play together? And I think Hughes and Hronek will play together in like a 2-1 game. You're down 5 minutes left. They're the two that are going to hop over the boards.
Yeah,
like
offensive face-off after a TV timeout. Those are your two guys out there. Both of them, one of them will be set up for their one-timer. Either way, that's great because both of them have a great shot. They both have great playmaking ability. They can get back and make that first shot with the puck, or first pass with the puck. Sorry, to get it out of the D zone quickly. And that's my biggest concern is putting Susie and Myers together on that third pairing. We have a love-hate relationship with Myers
the chaos
on the Canucks. Chaos draft. When he is on his game, it's great. When he's winding up and taking that slap shot, and he's able to use his size to hold people out of the screen. And I think maybe just the last few years, it's been too many minutes for him. So that's why I'm hoping that the third pairing minutes will be better.
Yeah, that's my thought too. I think if he plays less minutes a night, then he is very possible for him to be successful. Now, and you don't want a guy that you're paying that much to be on your third pair, but at the end of the day, you got to do whatever's the best. If you have to pay a guy that much to sit in the press spots, that's the situation you were given. So,
I mean, I still am holding on to hope. This far into training camp, it seems like a moot point that there might be a trade coming through with Myers.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, the more I hear and see the players that I was hoping to be able to come up and fill in that placement. We don't have it. There's not that right shot depth.
No.
And very few organization is going to trade you right shot defenseman for a right shot defenseman in an even trade.
No.
We would have to throw in a sweetener, and we already did that to get rid of Pearson.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation on defense. It'll be fun to see what happens because I'm expecting a lot of movement. I'm expecting us to play like 12 to 13 defensemen this year.
Yeah. The only other thing that I want to make a very good point about before we move off the defenseman is the Canucks management did a really good job this year in the fact that these new guys that we're talking about, and I know Filip Hronek was a trade. This is his last year, and then he's an RFA. Ian Cole, 1-year contract. Carson Soucy did sign for 3 years, but he's a little bit younger than some of the other guys. He's 29.
How much is the cap hit?
3.25.
Next, and if the cap goes up as much as we're hoping and expecting, and I was listening to Thomas Drance last week, who says with the bankruptcy of Bally Sports and now the bankruptcy of BioSteel, 2 major partners for the NHL, they might try to use that and say let's calm down the cap talk again.
Yeah,
and another modest $1 million increase.
Yeah, and Tyler Myers is on the last year of his contract. I know that wasn't signed this offseason, but
it's coming off the books.
Yeah.
Even if the cap only goes up $1 million, Soucy, a second or third pairing for $3.5 million, who you can rely on, I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's jump to your forward lines.
All right. So this is partially based off of training camp, and this is where they want them. So I don't know if you've seen this. I was trying to find the tweet, and I couldn't find it, so I don't remember what all the pairings were. But there was a tweet. I want to say it was Drance, but I couldn't find it, so it might have been somebody else that said they were kind of looking at having pairs on the forward lines, and then just getting a third guy in.
That was Drance. He was speaking on it. He had a talk with Rick Tocchet. He was talking about it on his radio show on Canucks Talk.
Okay.
So yeah, I built my lines somewhat around that idea.
Yeah, I built my lines a little bit around, at least the top. The top six built around that, and then I kind of went off. And I think part of it is first line. I believe we probably both have the same. We have Kuzmenko, we have EP40 up the middle, and we got Hodlander on the right wing.
That is to me the best case scenario for your top line to start with, especially because we don't know for certain what's going on with Ilya Mikheyev, and if he'll be back in time for the start of the season.
I have a note on that on my Nets line.
Yeah, there we go. Look at
that. Nets line is you got Miller up the middle, you got Besser on one side, which is kind of their 1-2 punch, and I think they're going to try and start with Podkolzin in there. And I think if either Podkolzin or Hodlander fail and Mikheyev comes back 5 games into this season, that's where he goes. He'll go to either side, he'll go to either wing, and he'll flank one of those lines. And those guys will either get kicked right down the line or just straight to the bench for a couple of games.
Press box. And that's not a bad thing. There was a lot of discussion when Boudreau did that with Höglander before sending him down.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing for these younger players when you're 22, 23 to play a couple games, 3 or 4 games, then go on a back-to-back, go sit in the press box and watch. If you're doing it properly and you're a professional about it and you're watching, you're not just pissy because you're not in the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think the issue is if Höglander's going to go sit for 9 straight games, then you just need to send him down. But it happens with your bottom 4 defensemen, bottom 2 especially, all the time. You just rotate them in and out. It's a physical game. It's fine.
There's a reason why a 7th defenseman is such a common term in NHL nowadays, is because playing defense, sometimes you get hit, and on a back-to-back in Myers or Cole, guys who are getting up there in age, they play 10, 15 games, then there's a back-to-back and they're like, guys, I'm tired. I just need a recovery day.
And I blocked 4 shots last night.
Exactly.
I'm pretty bruised up. It hurts to walk today. I could play. If this was game 7, I'd be out there, but
and that's the thing is
long term.
Do you care if it's game 12 or game 20 of an 82 game season, because they'll be fresh when it's game 90 in the playoffs. Like,
yeah, agreed.
All right, so let's get to your third line.
All right, this is where I think it's going to get a little bit spicy. So I have Connor Garland on one side. I got Beauvillier on the other wing. And then I have Studnicka in the middle.
You have Studnicka in the middle. Okay.
I do. He's not Tocchet's favorite last year, and Tocchet has talked numerous times already this year about how much of a professional he was, how great he was last year, and how he's worked on it this year. And he started training camp on the wing. He was not and now he's moved back to center since he's been there. Now that might mean that he's going to go down to the AHL, but I needed to have a spicy pick. So I'm having Studnicka in my open day roster as a centerman.
That's if you put him on the wing, I'm all on it. But the center depth that they went out of their way to sign is so they didn't have to put a Studnicka at center.
Yeah. And I thought that too, but then he's been playing center the last couple of days of training camp, and I was like, that's weird, but
you're not wrong. Like, again, you're not wrong, and I've seen crazier things happen. Hell, like, it wouldn't surprise me if halfway through the year we pull the plug on Miller being a center and he is playing wing again up where on the top line.
Yeah.
And what do you do then? You need someone like a Studnicka to be able to step in and take those faceoffs. I like it. I don't hate it. So is your pairing on that one? Is your pairing on that one the wingers, Garza and Beauvillier?
See, this is kind of where I went off the rails. But yeah,
no,
I think Garland and Beauvillier they have to be your pairing, and then you can move Suter up if you need to. You can move I don't know. You can move Bluder up. I have Bluder playing on the wing on my fourth line, so you have another guy who can play center.
No, I don't mind it. Like, my first thought was I don't like it, and then as I'm thinking about it, I don't mind it because I think Garland and Beauvillier would be a great pairing together because you've got the sporadicness of whatever Garland does, and there's no words, let alone hockey words, to describe what Garland does because he spins, spins, freaking does backflips. I don't know how he does it, but he holds on to that puck, and Beauvillier is patient enough to get into those soft spots and has a good enough shot that he can clean up. They need a centerman who can get them the puck in the offensive zones. And I think all three of them are competent enough on defense that you're not losing anything.
Yeah. So that was my thought. I think what we need for that line to work is we need the Garland that played the first 25 games of the NHL season last year and not the Garland that played the rest of the year.
Yeah. And I wonder if he's familiar with Tocchet. Like,
yeah.
And they've talked about it. Like, Garland, I know, has talked about it where he's like, I like having, like, I like Tocchet because you know what you get with him.
Yeah.
And I think it was like he said something along those lines. So don't quote me on exactly what he said, but it was one of those like, I wonder if he was one of the guys who kind of felt lost with Boudreau's lack of system.
I think so.
Where it's like, he's like, cool, I can go do whatever I want. And it's like, okay, now what do? I've got the puck and I'm throwing it at the net, but it's not going in. There's no base system to fall back on.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know. I think they brought Tocchet in, they got OEL out, and they kept Garland. So I think there's something. Like, I think there's something there. And
I also think it would have been very hard to trade Garland this offseason.
I agree with that entirely. But he's there. And Garland's another guy. If he plays like he did at the start of last year, and Pods don't show up,
you could put him up.
He can easily be bumped. I think Garland or Beauvillier, either of the wingers on this third line could, there's a world where our third line in my line formation is Pods, Studnicka, Hoglander by game 5.
Yep. Which is, to me, again, I don't mind that line. If we're going to do that, I would probably swap out Bluger for Studnicka, just because he's a lot more defensive minded. And we know some of the criticism on Höglander has been his defensive play, so you just have that balance. But
I agree. I just mean more so like I could see both those wingers getting moved up the lineup and then those other two coming down.
No, I like that.
What's your third line then? What do you have as your third line?
So, we have identical top 6.
Yeah.
My third line is PDG, Phil DiGiuseppe.
Yeah.
Pius Suter, and Beauvillier.
Okay.
So I'm going more of a defensive-minded third pairing that you're putting out there as a shutdown pairing. You're putting them over the boards when it's McDavid off an icing call where he's got a little bit of gas. He doesn't have all the gas left, but you can trust this line to go out there and shut him down, control the puck, get it out.
Totally.
Maybe make it an offensive play. I just think like Studnicka was on the border for me for my lines. I also don't have Garland in the lineup.
See, that was the big thing that instantly clicked when you sent me yours. I was like, okay, the bottom 6 is going to be different. Oh, no Garland.
No Garland. I think Garland is going to be the guy sitting and watching for the first 4 or 5 games. He's going to be the guy who gets the call when Pods or Höglander, if Pods and Höglander fall off, or if DiGiuseppe or Amon aren't pulling their weight.
Yeah, what's your fourth line then? Let's might as well.
Yeah, my fourth line is Dakota Joshua, Teddy Bluger, and Nils Amon.
Okay. My fourth line is Dakota Joshua, Pius Suter, and Teddy Bluger, because you brought Bluger in for his penalty killing. The Canucks were the 32nd ranked penalty killing team and just as bad the year before. Like, you need. I don't care if Bluger plays 6 minutes a night and it's all on the penalty kill. Like that. That's what
that's what you were brought in here, and that's what you need to do because something needs to happen because it's been brutal.
Yeah,
and they're going to be tested in the first 2 games because we're going to take penalties as we showed on preseason.
Yeah, and those guys are pretty good at hockey. Those Edmonton Oilers.
They are. Their goaltending is always a question, but the forwards and defensemen very good at hockey.
Very good at hockey. Very good. I have Phil Giuseppe and Sheldon Dries as my 13th, 14th. But I kind of want to put a man in there somewhere too. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of options in the bottom 6. I think that like the top 6 is like pretty solidified. I also think like just looking at second power play unit, like I think Garland's going to be on that. So I think he needs to be in the lineup. And I think with Tocchet as your coach, he's going to be there because they just have such a good bond, it seems. From before.
So who would you have on your second power play? Sorry, I'm just looking this through on both of our lineups. To me, do you have Hronek from the point?
Yeah, Hronek's on the back end. So first power play, just to confirm, is Kuzmenko, EP40, Miller, Besser, Hughes.
Yeah.
Which means your second power play unit is probably...
Sorry, if Höglander shows the skills to be that the Bo Horvat bumper position in practices, I think you could replace Besser with him.
I think you could, but they've been trying a new power play in like their scrimmages and stuff, and it does not involve a consistent bumper, and they move around a lot. I was reading an article about it today.
I don't mind it after the shit we've seen where they just stand still and pass the puck around and then miss the net and skate the zone.
So from like, for example, on that first power play from the article I was reading, Hughes sometimes moved on to the wing with Besser or Petey, and they would kind of swap. But for the most part, Hughes was on the blue line, Besser and Petey were on the side, but then they all kind of moved around and they allowed them to go behind the net, which was something that wasn't really done in the past. So that's my first PP line. And then PP2, that's going to be Höglander, Beauvillier, Garland, Hronek's on the back end, and then it just kind of becomes who's your fifth guy. And it could be Pods. It should be Pods.
You need a guy to take faceoffs, though.
Yeah. That's
issue. Do you have a Studnicka take the faceoff and peel off and get Pods or Hugs out there? Or are you confident enough in their ability to take those 4 or 5 faceoffs, 3 faceoffs a night as a second line?
Yeah. It's possible. Right. So,
and I mean, Pods is a big enough guy. He could just go in there and try to push forward and tie up the center right away, win it back with his skate.
Yeah, and it could be Miller or Petey just coming on for the faceoff, and if he wins it, maybe he stays on for a couple seconds, and if he doesn't, he just skates off to the bench for the retrieval.
Or, I mean, in reality, I mean, unless you just had a power play, how often are you not starting with your PP1 and you just don't worry about a true centerman?
Yeah. So
I don't mind that. Again, the only thing I would have swapped out would be honestly, I would put in Hog spot. I would put Amon for my lineup.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with that. I think that's fine. Okay.
Again, the bottom 6 for the Canucks is so fluid and mushy that I think it's going to take until November or December for us to have a solid lineup. I think we're going to find those pairs that work, like whether that's Dakota Joshua and Bluger or Suter. And again, I'm really growing on the Garland Beauvillier pairing.
Yeah.
And have a center float between them.
Okay, speaking of the Canucks power play, I have a fun question for you now.
Oh no.
The past 2 seasons.
Yep.
So full 2 seasons.
Yeah.
1 to 32. Where do they rank in total power play goals?
They are 7th.
Wow, that was a very good guess.
No, I heard this recently. I heard it because I knew they were in the top half of the league.
Yeah,
and I knew they were
top quarter.
Higher end. Yeah.
And they ranked top 10 in the NHL over the last 164 regular season games, the last 2 years, by both power play conversion rate and overall power play goal differential. So
then why are we reinventing the wheel? And is it just because Bo is gone and we don't have that beautiful bumper spot anymore, or bumper player anymore? Or is it just let them play? They're
yeah. And this got brought up in the article. It's like, are we replacing something that's not broken?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it being different. And I think the other thing to note, though, is that these guys are so used to, and they see it all the time. Everybody plays it. Everybody plays the diamond on the penalty kill now because everyone plays the bumper. Like, so many teams do this, that if this rotating wheel, whatever they're calling it, doesn't work, just go back to the bumper.
I was going to say, and the worst part, even if it doesn't work for one game, they have the pieces there that they know how to format to readjust during mid-game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just like the drop pass for years. What's his name? Our old power play coach, who's now with Anaheim.
Yeah, I can't think
of his name. His name is gone in my brain. It'll come to me like as soon as we hit end stream for the
end stream. Boom, show. There it is.
He was like kind of the originator, the innovator of the drop pass. And now every single team is kind of doing it. And now you're seeing variations on that drop pass. And like Hughes last year, 3 or 4 times, faked that drop pass so well and then just took it in himself.
Yeah.
This could be like just kind of what I would call a floating diamond, where they all know how to play the different positions and they just float through it.
Yeah.
It could work.
Yeah.
So either way, I'm excited. We have math 1, 2, 3. We have 3 preseason games before the next show, before the next podcast.
Fair.
One of them isn't on air. One of them isn't on air, which sucks.
Fair.
But we have games. We have hockey back on. It feels like it's been a long time.
Watch. It has.
I don't know why. Like maybe it's because I'm doing the show and I've noticed it week after week. But this offseason felt very goddamn long, and I'm tired of having long goddamn off seasons.
Yeah, it has been a very long off season, and I was talking to my boss at work the other day, and we were both saying how like it's been 6 months since I've watched a live hockey game because I went to the Prince George Juniors game.
Yeah.
When they won their first round playoff matchup, I was at that game. So I was like, that's the last hockey game I've seen. Like it's been months. So
think about it. I mean, the Canucks haven't had a home playoff game since 2012.
I don't want to think about that, actually, Jake.
11 years. since
ago.
Rogers Arena, the Garage, whatever you want to call it, had a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of losing. Like, I am. I'm just tired. Like, I don't care if we squeak into the playoffs. I don't care if we're a President's goddamn trophy and we get swept in the first round.
I just want to see some playoff hockey.
Give me hockey to care about. Because I care all 82 games. I am, even before doing the show, I was a guy who'd watch comfortably, I'd say 70 out of the 82 games.
Yeah.
Because sometimes life gets in the way and I bitch about it the entire time. But when friends come in from out of town and shit happens, you're like, God damn it, I guess I'm not watching the hockey game. But now I have a reason to watch every single hockey game, and no one can really complain about me because of the website and the show.
Yeah, right. That's why you started the podcast, is to watch the other 12 games.
See, this guy knows. Which is, I'm going to announce this, and it's very tentative, but I'm going to try. I say try, and I stress it because in October I'm going to be very busy, as October is still football month, and football, I'm officiating. The last 2 weekends combined, I have done 3, 6. What's 6 and 5? 6 and 6 is 12. I've done 12. Wow, that was hard math. I've done 12 games in the last 14 days.
Oh wow.
So it's
a lot of football.
If you like football and you're watching and you think I should want to get involved somehow, maybe I should coach, maybe you should ref, because it's fantastic, it's fun, and you get paid to do it. And we need you, especially in the Calgary area. We need you. Please come out. This is an unpaid advertisement, but please come out. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter at JStreams or the HSP_pod. I can get you in contact with the people because we desperately need more and more officials. But because of that, I'm going to hesitate on saying every week. But once we get into November and once football stops up, it's going to be every week. I'm going to do a game by week review at the end of the week of every single game and break down highlights, lowlights, and kind of the progression of the season. And I want to do this so you guys can see how hopeful and happy I am from week 1. And by the time we get to like week 20, how sad and desperate I am just to make the playoffs. And I want it on the record. So, and you'll be able to see all of that. Look at this. It's almost like I planned it this way. You can see all of that at the HughesSports.ca website. We've been lacking the last couple of weeks. Again, see, Hughes Sports Podcast. If you like that, keep your eye out for the playoffs. We'll probably do our first annual playoff bracket challenge, because the first one is actually called the inaugural, and the first one that happens the second time, it's actually the first annual. It's very confusing. The English language is dumb. Thank you. But you can check out HughesSports.ca. We have all sorts of news articles, our weekly power rankings. The old man rants when he's not in Europe enjoying life and ignoring his children as it gets like chilly here in like September. But it's cool. It's whatever. But yeah, that's where you'll also be able to find my weekly reports on the Canucks. I have no idea what I'm going to call it. I like naming things, so I'll come up with a stupid name that makes me giggle, and we'll go with it from there. Now, because we've taken up 52 minutes already talking about hockey and projections, let's do a really, really, really quick recap of week 16 in the CFL. Game number 1, we had the Rough Riders going into Ottawa, and I typed that wrong. I'm looking at it, I was like, that's not right. The Riders end up losing the game 28 to the Red Blacks 36.
I was about to say that I was like, oh, the CFL's website is wrong again, but nope, that was just you.
No, that's
there
just
it
me
is.
mistyping.
That's what
Hey,
we
look at that, I
said.
fixed it. Yeah, see? For those who aren't watching on YouTube, you don't even know. The podcast heard me read it out perfectly fine. I think it's just Rough Riders are in a tough situation. They're on their third quarterback, even though he's a young kid who's got all the potential in the world. I think it's just time for either a new voice in Saskatchewan or for next year them to come back with Trevor Harris, regroup, ready to go. Because this season has just been a bust. Technically, I think they still have it. They're still in a playoff spot. The way everything's trending, you're going to be facing the Blue Bombers and the Lions in the first round away from Regina. It's going to be a bit of a beatdown. But again, I've seen crazier things happen in the CFL, so I'm not going to hold my breath and say, Saskatchewan, your season is done. You just got to be better. A lot of the teams in the West just need to be better.
Just be better.
Speaking of a team that has gotten better since firing or moving the offensive coordinator and has now put in a new, young, fresh quarterback in Trey Ford. The Elks, they walk into BC. Or no, the Lions walk into the Edmonton. I can read. Don't worry about me. And lose to a score of 37-29. This is the most of the game that I watched actual of, and I didn't just watch the highlights. It looked pretty easy. Like the score makes it look close. It was not a close game. It was the Lions had it well in hand, and in the last few minutes, the Elks made it look close. I mean, it is a one-score game, and anything can happen. But the Lions, well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are off this week. The Lions make it that one game closer. They are now tied and technically in second place with the Blue Bombers. And the game on October 6th is going to be the game to watch for the Western Conference, Western Division, because BC could be hosting playoff games. Vancouver could be hosting playoff games.
They're doing
not
it.
Not the Vancouver Canucks, the BC
Just
Lions.
a different arena. Just down the road.
Just across the street, really.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the Whitecaps are sounding like they might even host home playoffs. So then if the Canucks do it, it would be three teams in the three major sports. I'm not holding my breath.
No.
But it's a possibility. Then we go to the Alouettes and the Stampeders, and I just think that the Stampeders, the organization as a whole, needs just a shake-up, and they either need a new playbook, a new quarterback, a new coach, and my favorite out of all of these options is all three. Jake Meyer is not a starting quarterback with this playbook, and Coach Dickinson refuses to make any changes. The Alouettes are a good team, but you need to be making adjustments. Your quarterback is not the same quarterback you've had in years past, and for the last 16 weeks, you've run the same playbook that has netted you a total of 4 wins in 14 games. It's time to make a change. That's all I got to say about that game. The Owls are pretty solidly in second place. I can't see them really moving. And then we go to the Hamilton Tiger Cats going into Toronto, and Toronto is just the best team in the league. They're better in every aspect of the game. I've been saying this since week 2. They are the team to beat in the Grey Cup. Chad Kelly, we could have a repeat champion in the CFL. And this might hurt the Blue Bombers' feelings, the Blue Bomber fans' feelings, the Smurf Mafia. They're grrr. It's not your team. It's going to be the Argos. They're that good. Even if it's the BC Lions, the Lions go in and play the Argonauts. It's going to be hard for the Blue Bombers or the Lions on their best day to beat the Argos on their best day. Does that mean it's going to happen? No, of course not. We play the game for a reason. Players have off days. It's also the middle of November in bloody Hamilton and outside on a field. We could have a blizzard and you won't be able to throw the ball and things completely change. But, I mean, for the Argonauts, that's not a problem because they have one of the best running backs in the league. It's the Argos championship unless they shoot themselves in their foot. And to finish up for this week, let's make some picks. I know you're right on top of your CFL knowledge there. I just gave you a quick rundown of everything.
Yeah, I got my pits out right here. I got
look at
the
you.
whole matchups. I got my pits made. They're bolded. I know who I'm gonna say.
Let's go. This guy's prepared. I don't know who I'm gonna say, so your steps ahead of me.
Okay,
I always do this. The people always assume, like me, especially me and the old man, that we're super planned out. And no, normally we know what we want to talk about. We put it in the captions, and then we just kind of free flow. The old man usually writes down his picks so he knows which picks he wants to go with. I don't. As we're going through the picks, I'm like, yeah, I feel like this way. So the first game, which I think is going to be the game of the week, we have the Toronto Argonauts going into the Winnipeg to face the Blue Bombers. 6 or 5 p.m. Pacific time. The early game on Friday. Who, Deej, do you have?
Okay. And this is partially because I want the October 6th matchup to mean even more.
Yeah.
Winnipeg coming off of a bye week, having 2 full weeks to prepare for Toronto. Best team. I'm going to go Winnipeg.
I want to disagree with you. I do. But the problem is I understand it. I understand the reasoning. I can't choose them. I can't. I just went on a 1-minute rant about how the Argonauts are the best team in the league.
Yeah, your rant almost made me change it. And if I'm putting money down, I'm not putting money down on Winnipeg. But
I'm not putting money on this game,
for the fun of it, I want Winnipeg to win.
I'm not putting money on this game, period, no matter how many points, whichever way, because this game could go either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Argonauts. I just think there's that little separation between the Argonauts and the Blue Bombers because I tier things. I've learned this listening to Thomas Drance. I tier things. He's very big on tiers. Argonauts are tier 1. Blue Bombers and Lions are tier 2. Then everyone else is like tier 4. Then we got the Saskatchewan Roughriders going into BC Place Stadium to take on the BC Lions. The late game on Friday. Who do you have, Mr. DJ?
I am taking the BC Lions.
Let's go 2 for 2 on the BC Lions.
Even better.
I'm not going to be shocked if this is a blowout game. I think last I saw it was like a 9.5 point spread. I still don't think I'm taking that spread. Like I'm not taking the Lions against the points because I don't trust that we don't get up a huge lead and then give it up and it's an 8-point game at the end of the day like we did last week.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm not taking the spread, but I am picking the Lions. It's straight up. Then we have the Montreal Alouettes going into Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks, whatever those are. A 2 p.m. matinee or a 1 p.m. matinee Pacific time. Who do you got for that one?
I just got to go with Montreal.
Yeah, I'd love to see. Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Red Blacks themselves are a better team than what their record shows. But the Owls should win. Mm-hmm. Which means, in my opinion, this could be the upset of the week. You could have the Red Blacks pull it off and really kill it, but I wouldn't be shocked either way, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then we have the fledgling Calgary Stampeders going in to take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the evening game, the 4 p.m. start in Hamilton. I'm going to take the Tiger Cats. I think they're just a slightly better team.
I'm taking the Tiger Cats as well.
Yeah, again, my Stamps rant 4 minutes ago probably proves that I'm not a fan of the Jake Meyer, Dave Dickinson combo. But never say never. It's a CFL. The thing is that there's like one game I'm very confident in a win, not in the point spread. Every other game could go either way, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a CFL.
Yeah, that checks out.
A lot of fun. Now, before we go, I'm going to put you on the spot right here.
Oh.
96.5 points for the Vancouver Canucks. Are you taking the over or are you taking the under? Just for those who don't know, 96.5 is the get into the playoff point for the Pacific Division over the last like 4 or 5 years. 96.5 points most of the time will get you into the playoffs.
Oh man, you know what? I took the over last year on everything Canucks and it bit me in the ass. So
you did. I remember you being like, I got this. You're going to take the under.
I'm taking the under. I think they get like 94. Like, I think they're really close. I think that's a good line.
I'm hopeful. I'm going to hold on to my optimism while it's still here, despite a 10-0 loss last night. And I'm going to say we hit 98 points this year.
Okay.
I say we're not even a wild card team. My prediction, 98 points, third place in the Pacific, behind the Golden Noodles and the Boilers.
Yeah. That's what I had last year. My prediction last year was Oilers, Knights, Canucks. And that's not what happened. But,
it happens. Nancy Jackson, my mother, chimes in, and she is taking the under as well. So maybe it's just a BC thing, like you guys are in the BC air, whatever you guys inhale out there is just a pessimism. It just ekes off of you guys.
Yeah, that's called that's wildfire smoke actually that I'm inhaling.
Oh, trust, we've gotten a lot of that here. Not the actual fires, just a shit ton of smoke.
Just our smoke, yeah.
But Deej, I appreciate you coming on and filling the spot of the old man, because let's face it, last week everyone got tired of about half hour of me talking to myself. And there was enough to cover that I needed someone to bounce terrible ideas off of.
No, that's fair. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to the next time. I'll be back. Sorry, fans, but I'll be back.
He will be back in 2 weeks. Deej, we're not spoiling anything. In 2 weeks, we have a special guest coming up, and I'm very excited for it. Not a guest host, not a co-host, a guest host, but someone who will be on for a segment. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment of who you think it is. I'm not going to give you any hints. I'm not going to reply to anything. I'm not going to like anything, so I'm not going to give anything away. If you're listening on Google Podcast, to Apple Podcast, the Spotify, leave a comment and tell me who it is. Tell me who you think it is. That is fair. I will say it is a NHL guest. It is someone who is in the sphere of the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to leave you guys with that. A cliffhanger that's 2 weeks away. Next week, we'll be back with the old man sitting in probably he'll be sitting in this chair. I'll be finally back home, sleeping in my own bed in my own chair, and I'll be way happier. But for now, I appreciate you all you tuning in. Have yourselves a wonderful night. Mwah. Goodbye.